All right, it should record now. Right, when we look at our workshop of this morning, your research footprint, tracking and enhancing scholarly impact. Measuring research performance is not a new concept. It goes back to 1910 when an American psychologist, James Cattell, introduced the idea of systematically ranking scientists by performance. In his book, Scientific Men of America, he wrote, "It is surely time for scientific men to apply a scientific method to determine the circumstances that promote or hinder the advancement of science." But even though research evaluation is not new, what is definitely new are the many and increasing ways in which it can be measured. And that will increase with time more and more. We will have a look at some of the most common indicators and sources used today, though it should be noted that there are many more used by experts in the field of informatics and bibliometrics. So this is just the biggest sources that we will talk about. This presentation has two parts. One is the different ways of tracking your impact, and two is the ways to improve your impact. So we will look at those two directions. All right, so if we look at the outline, there will be a quick introduction. Then we will talk about citation analysis, the H, G, and M indexes. Then we will talk about the data sources that Peter will handle. We will look at Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholar, and some others. And then we will have a quick overview about webometrics and altmetrics, and how to increase your footprint. Just a few tips on how to increase your impact, and some final remarks. Okay, and the outcomes, what we aim to achieve is by the end of this workshop, you should be able to create citation reports in Scopus and in Web of Science, calculate and find your H index, be aware of other indexes, find and understand the journal impact factors, the journal's citation reports. You will also be able to create a profile in Google Scholar and be aware of various altmetrics and webometrics. Okay, now just for a start, I want to quickly show you a video, just for a short introduction.
The area I work in, which is chemical sensing, is inherently multidisciplinary. So, historically, in science and in chemistry and material science, it's been very important to establish your academic credentials through publishing. Now, once you publish, it used to be that you report in your CV just the papers that you publish. But now what happens is that you get a lot of focus now on referencing of other papers in people's work. This has become a really important part of, again, establishing your impact. And the way this is done is through what's called a citation score. So it's one thing to publish your paper, the next thing is who reads your papers. Is anybody reading it? And, people will say, okay, you've published a paper, but nobody's read it, therefore it's had no impact. And the way they score this is through referencing of your paper and other people's publications. So I publish a paper and I cite maybe 30 publications in that paper, and then that goes into what's called a citation score for the other authors of those papers. My citation scores are then aggregated, so if you look at somebody's CV on something like the Web of Science, you can very quickly get their publications, you can get the best cited papers, you can get the aggregated citation score for that person, and then you get a number of parameters that are increasingly coming out. Now, one of which the most commonly used is probably the H index, which is basically the number of papers that are cited above a certain score, the number of papers you have cited to the maximum above this line. So, for example, if you have a citation index, a H index of 30, it means you've got 30 papers cited more than 30 times. Now, these are fairly crude indicators of performance, but they're increasingly being used as one of a number of what are called key performance indicators, or KPIs. And KPIs, or performance indicators, are used increasingly by HR when hiring people, agencies when assessing the performance of PIs, or principal investigators, who are applying for significant funding. If you don't have a big H index, a high scoring H index, then that raises questions about your performance and whether you can deliver. Because if you're not publishing in the literature, it means that, you know, people will say work not published is work not done. So if you're not publishing, it means, you know, your work is not reaching that external audience.
Okay. So what comes out here, oh, let me just go back here, is that until a few, sorry, it starts again, sorry. What comes out there is that until a few years ago, universities measured their research primarily by number of publications. Particularly the focus was also on the impact factors of the journals in which they were publishing. Increasingly, however, research performance is being measured by looking at the number of citations per article. This is because the number of times that the publication is cited is regarded as a measure of the value or impact of the publication. The increased use of the web for science communication makes it important to consider webometrics as well. So too does the increased use of social media make it important to consider altmetrics to use. So what is citation analysis? A very simple explanation is to say that citation analysis is a way of measuring the impact of an author, an article, or a publication by counting the number of times that author, article, or publication has been cited by other works. So now, citation indexes. To find citation information, you need to use a citation index. Examples of citation indexes are Scopus, Web of Science, and Google Scholar. These are all young inventions which date back to 1964, when Eugene Garfield developed the Science Citation Index. He had the idea that articles could be indexed by using citation information as retrieval terms instead of keywords and descriptors assigned by indexers. So, a citation index is a bibliographic index which does not include a specific publication, but also the references that were made to that publication. We'll have a closer look at the most important indexes once we've talked a bit through a few other things. So the next slide will show an overview of the H-index. Looking at some of the metrics which have come out of citation indexing, there's the H-index developed by George Hirsch in 2005. The H-index is an indicator that uses a researcher's number of citations in relation to his number of articles as a measure of impact. So the H-index is now recognized as an industry standard to provide information about the performance of researchers and research areas. Then the formula, the H-index formula works like this. A scientist, the H-index proposes that the scientist has an H-index of 9 if his top 9 most cited publications have each reached at least 9 citations. So that's how you will calculate it. If it's 13, if the scientist's top 13 most cited publications have each received at least 13 citations, and so on. So that's just the way you will calculate it. If we continue, this is the graph. When you see this in this graph, the H-index is on the 45 degree line where the number of citations intersect with the number of publications. Where the number of citations are given on the y-axis, and the papers are numbered in order of decreasing citations on the x-axis. So that is how it will be calculated. Then if we just continue to the advantages of the H-index, it combines quantity, publications, and impact, the citations. So that's what it combines together. Better than other single number criteria such as the impact factor, total number of documents, the total number of citations, and so on. So it is better than those single number criteria. It is regarded as an objective measure of performance. It factors out low cited and high cited papers. It is easy to obtain. It's not something you have to calculate yourself. It's very easy to find with Scopus and those products that Peter will show you later on. It is also easy to understand and also easy to calculate yourself if you have to. But then there's also limitations of the H-index. Publication and citation patterns vary between subject fields. So the H-index should not be used to compare scientists from different disciplines. Some fields have a high publication citation rate. For example, neurosciences, life sciences, pharmacology, and toxicology, it's just examples. But some fields have a low publication rate or citation rate. And that is, for example, mathematics, computer science, arts and humanities. So the H-index favors the more established scientists who have had a longer time to accumulate citations. That's another drawback. And highly cited papers that continue to accumulate citations are not reflected in the H-index. Since the H-index is easy to obtain, we also run the risk of a discriminate use and over-reliance on it. The use of the H-index could also provoke changes in the publishing behavior of scientists, such as an artificial increase in the number of self-citations. There are also technical limitations, such as that it is difficult to obtain the complete output of scientists with very common names. It is also difficult to decide whether self-citations should be removed or not. Self-citations can be misused, but is also considered with acceptable science practice. So there's that a decision how to use it or not. So the next slide, we will just look quickly at two other indexes. It's the G index. The G index was proposed by Leo Egger in a paper published in 2006. The aim of the G index was to rectify the fact that the H index did not reflect a scientist's most highly cited papers. It therefore tried to improve on the H index by giving more weight to highly cited papers. The G is the number of articles that receive G square citations. So that's how you will work it out. A scientist with a G index of 35 means that 35 of her papers together have at least 35 times 35 citations. So G squared. The G indexes of researchers vary more than those of H indexes, which makes it a useful measure to distinguish between researchers. If we continue just to another slide to look at the calculation, from a practical point of view, in order to obtain the G index of a scientist, it is necessary to rank all the documents by decreasing order of citations. The position where the square of the rank is equal to the accumulated number of citations corresponds to the G index. So in that example, the 36 is the square there. Then if we just quickly have a look at the M index, the H index, one of the limitations of the H index is that it favors more established scientists who have had a longer time to accumulate citations. To correct this problem, Hirsch introduced the M indicator, which is the result of dividing H by the scientific age of a scientist. And that is the number of years since the author's first publication. So that's how you will calculate the scientific age of a scientist. The M index is therefore defined as H divided by N, where N is the number of years since the first published paper of the scientist. So that's how that will work. And then if we continue, we just look at a quick comparison between the three of them. It is sometimes advisable to use all three indicators when you evaluate a researcher for appointments, promotions, or for working together. So in this table, the HG and the M indexes of 4 researchers are listed. Dr. Ray has the highest H index, indicating a pattern of consistently high citations. Dr. Smith has the highest G index, which shows that he has published work with extraordinary impact. Dr. Ray, however, also has the highest M index, which indicates that he has accumulated the most citations relative to the span of his career. And that's what it makes it quite interesting to compare these with each other. So where the H index is generally available in citation indexes and easy to find, this is not the case for the G and M index. So you will have to calculate it a bit yourself. Just want to make sure that. Okay, so when we continue now, The main citation analysis tools are what we're going to look at next, and that's where Peter will come in just now. Having looked at a few of the available indicators, we can now look at where to find the source data for the indicators. The three main sources are Scopus, like you already heard, Web of Science, and Google Scholar. Before we look at them, it is important to note also a few limitations. Not one of the indexes are complete, covering all journals, so they should be seen or used as complementary to each other. You can't just use the one because then you missed out perhaps in another. The focus is on journal literature, so books are usually not included. They generally have a strong English language bias and have limited coverage of foreign language journals. There is an emphasis on journals published in the US, in the UK, and Western Europe as well. And with Web of Science and Scopus, the coverage of science journals are superior to social sciences and the humanities. So we just also have to keep that in mind. They usually focus more on science. Okay, then if we look at the next slide, it's just to highlight that we will look at these three sources today, but then there's also other citation sources that you can have a look at on your own. It's Highwire Press Journals, Science Direct, Springer Link, Wiley Online Library, SciFinder Scholar, and MathSciNet. And then there's a free tool sites here, which is also available for use. Right, I think we can hand over to Peter now. He will tell you more about Scopus and the rest.
Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again from my side. My presentation is going to contain basically two parts. We're going to do a bit of theory where you don't have to do anything, you can just watch on the screen in front of you, the big screen in front of you, and then we're going to move to a bit of hands-on. We'll have to do some stuff on your own as well. Can I just please ask you to open up your INET key for the duration of my session. You're not going to pay for anything, so you don't have to worry, but normally things just work a bit quicker and a bit faster if your INET key is open. If you do not have an INET key or you're struggling to open up your INET key, can you please just raise your hand and Marie will try to sort you out by opening up an INET key for you. Right, as my colleague alluded to a bit earlier on, I will show you how to see what a specific researcher's H-index is and how many times that person has been cited on the three largest academic databases available. First one we're looking at is Scopus, and then the other two, Web of Science and also Google Scholar. And obviously we're focusing on those three particular databases because it's important for the National Research Foundations to see how South African researchers are performing because of the rating system that is applied to South African researchers. So that's why you must make sure that when you decide to publish in a journal that it's indexed in either one of those three databases. The first one we're looking at is Scopus, the largest abstract database available in the world. So Elsevier tells us. You can see it was established in 2004 and it consists of 50 million records. Wow. 21,000 journal titles from so many publishers. So you can see that it's not just an Elsevier product, but it indexes a lot of different publishers' sources as well. And you can see for yourself from where they obtain the sources and the kind of sources that's indexed on Scopus. And to access Scopus, Web of Science, as well as Google Scholar, you need the library websites. And this is just an example. So again, you can just follow on the big screen where you can select those 3 databases from. It's a library website. I don't have to ask anyone here who has not been on the library website, because I can see you're all very familiar with the library website, and that's brilliant. Right, so the library website next to the White House. Stellenbosch University has its own little White House. We're very important. We select the search option. We go to electronic databases. And then depending on which database you're selecting, whether it's Web of Science, Google Scholar, or Scopus, you would just then select the alphabetical listing for either S, W, or G. We're doing Scopus as an example to start off with. So you can see that you will need the Scopus author search, and we will do this slightly in depth a bit more later on. To get to the identifier, from the Scopus author identifier, you can see how many times this particular author has been cited, how many times this author is actually published in journals that's been indexed on Scopus, as well as the very important H index that's also indicated on Scopus. I just have to apologize. This slide is slightly out of date. This morning when I did this again, just as a recap, Scopus have changed this particular page. Not drastically, but just be aware of that the page has changed slightly. Citation overview. So there you can see exactly in which journals this particular author has published, in what specific year. You've still got the H index displayed. How many times this author has been cited on this graph, and we can move over now to the Scopus demonstration. So you can see there the website is, so if everyone can please just log into that particular website, and that's the general library website. And you all know that by now, obviously. Yes, I can see everyone's nodding. If anyone struggles at all, please raise your hand. Right, so as I mentioned a bit earlier on, we go to the library website, and next to the White House, the search option, we do not select the search option, but we do go underneath the search option to the electronic databases. And there we will select on the alphabetical listing, there it is, the particular letter that database would start off with. So because we're doing Scopus, I will select S, and then from the list under S, I would select Scopus. Right, please be aware that if you are looking for an author's particular citation report, Scopus, the default opening page on Scopus is the document search. Now that's what you normally would do if you're just looking for information on a specific topic. So if you're looking for a citation overview of a specific author or researcher at your institution, please be aware that you have to select the tab at the top that says Author Search. Right, now you're more than welcome to use any researcher at your specific department of choice. The one that I'm going to use is the one that we have in our example, which is Professor van Helden from the Tygerberg, the medicine faculty. So I add his surname on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side I would add his initials. P. And then because I know that this particular researcher is from Stellenbosch University, where it says affiliation, you can add University of Stellenbosch, or preferably Stellenbosch University, but I'm just going to add Stellenbosch in this particular example. And when I've added all the credentials, I would select the search option on the right-hand side. As Marie mentioned a bit earlier on, right at the start of her presentation, or part of the presentation, the ORCID ID If the author or researcher has a specific ORCID ID, you can add that as well there at the bottom. Unfortunately, I don't know what this particular researcher's ORCID ID is, so I'm going to skip that part. So I'm just going to select search on the right-hand side, and hopefully I will find this particular researcher's citations. Right, so first of all, when I get a list of researchers, I must make sure that this person that I'm looking at is the person that I want in my list of authors or researchers. So you can see there I have Van Helden. I have 2 records for him. The subjects that he publishes in is obviously from medicine, so I can see that both of these 2 records are applicable. So then I would select either one of them. And then to get to this author's citation overview, Scopus makes it very easy for us. It's really not difficult to get to the citation overview of this particular author. Right at the top there in the center, there's a link that indicates to us View Citation Overview. So I'm just going to select View Citation Overview. Hopefully that works. And here you can see, this is what I mentioned earlier on, the page on the PowerPoint presentation is slightly outdated. When Scopus moved over to the new page, I have no idea. It might have been this morning when I checked up on it again. I'm going to use that excuse in any case, by the way. Right, so here you can see what this particular author's citation overview is, by the year, and how many times this particular author has been cited per year. And you can see that this author has been cited a number of times right at the top there, over 10,000 times since 1970. This is important, the amount of years that the person has been cited in. Previously, Scopus only focused from 1996 up until whatever year that you were in. And that was one of the main reasons why Scopus H-index differs from Web of Science index, because Web of Science have always indexed the H-index from 1970 onwards, which Scopus haven't done. But they are moving towards that now, to index authors' indexes, H-indexes from 1970. Right. The H-index on the PowerPoint presentation was indicated towards the right of the author's profile. Please be aware now, though, that the H-index is displayed at the top of the author's profile. You can see there 50. Very important on these H-indexes, because it does happen from time to time, well, probably all the time, that authors, researchers, and lecturers like to cite themselves because they obviously think that their previous research has been very important, and it probably is. But if you want to get a clearer view of how many people have actually cited a specific author, and you want to remove the self-citations, Scopus has a built-in mechanism where you can do that. And you will notice that there, right at the top, there's a little radio button, and then it indicates exclude self-citations of selected authors. So if I would select that radio button, and I would select the update button just below it, there you have update. It should now exclude all self-citations by authors, by that particular author. And you will know that it has worked because the total of citations have changed on the right-hand side. Remember, we had over 10,000 earlier on, but after I excluded the self-citing citations, it's now just dropped down, let's call it ever so slightly, to 9,300 citations. Very interestingly, also you will notice that the H index has dropped considerably as well if I exclude the self-citations. You will notice now there at the top where it was 50 earlier on, because I've removed some of the citations, it's now decreased to 46. Right, the only other thing that I will show to you or indicate to you is the H index graph. There it is, just a visual presentation of what this particular researcher's output looks like over the last few years. And obviously there where the little golden star is indicated, that is the H index of 46. So this particular author has been cited at least 46 of his journal articles have been cited 46 times. And that is exactly there where the yellow star is where those 46 journal articles are indicated. And you will notice now as well, where I mentioned earlier on that Scopus only indexes from 1996, but they have slowly but surely moved back to 1970. Very similar to what Web of Science does for their H index. Right. Let's move back to our PowerPoint presentation and move over to, I think the next one is Web of Science. Yes. So Web of Science is also a very large abstract academic database. And you will notice here that previously we mentioned on Scopus the amount of journals indexed. Here you will notice slightly less. But there's no denying the quality of the journals indexed on Web of Science. And it's always very important that when you do research for whatever topic it might be or subject it might be, don't exclude either of Web of Science or Scopus. You must use them simultaneously because they don't mutually cover all the journals available. So please remember to use Web of Science as well as Scopus for your research. Right. Again, the same procedure as last. How to access Web of Science. We go to the library web house, electronic databases, and because Web of Science starts with a W, we move to the W on the alphabetical listing to access Web of Science. On Web of Science, there are a number of ways to actually access the citation overview of a particular author. This morning we're only going to show you one particular method of accessing an author's citation overview, which is fairly similar to the Scopus option. And there you can see how to do that on the particular PowerPoint presentation. There you've got the H index of that particular author. And before we move over to Google Scholar, let's all move back to our PCs and we can go back to Hands Online and let's move over to Web of Science. Again, please just raise your hand if you do get stuck in the process. Right, so next to the White House, underneath search, we have electronic databases. And as I mentioned earlier on, we use the W. And there we have Web of Science. The title of the database is a bit misleading. Okay, it says Web of Science, but it really does index a lot of arts and humanities as well as a lot of social science journals as well. So if you're from the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, you're doing accountancy as your subject of choice, please, Web of Science is also a very good source to use. And if it's important to your faculty to publish your articles in high impact factor journals, then the Web of Science is unfortunately the only way to go. But more of that's a bit later on. Right, so Web of Science. There we go. So we want to find an author citation overview on Web of Science to see whether it's slightly different from our Google Scholar citation overview. Right, I mentioned earlier on that there are more than one ways to access a citation overview on Web of Science. This morning we're only going to show you one route. So you will notice that we have an option, and the default on Web of Science again is called Basic Search. So it's fairly similar to the one that we found on Scopus, which was called Document Search. So we will have to make a slight adjustment on Web of Science to change the page that we can do an author search. So next to Basic Search, there's a drop-down arrow, and you will notice there that I don't have any option to select my author search. Okay? So please remember, don't get intimidated or worried if you do that, see that, because that's not the way that you go about this. Next to the topic option, a bit lower down to the right, okay, it's not quite as visible as the Basic Search drop-down option. Next to topic, there's an option where you can select the author. Okay, so please remember, if you don't see an author option next to Basic Search, just move a bit further down to the right where you will get the, underneath the topic option, an author search. Right, I'm going to select the same author as I did previously so that we can get some sort of comparison between Scopus and Web of Science. So again here, Web of Science is actually very kind because it indicates to me how I should enter this particular researcher or author's credentials. And you can see there again, I start with the second name first. Last always first, and first is always last, apparently. Right, so now, if you can remember on Scopus, there was an option to add the affiliation of this particular researcher or author. Because Van Helden P, well, there might be hundreds of them scattered throughout the world. So now I'm slightly stuck because I would really like to add Stellenbosch University to Van Helden because I know this particular researcher is from Stellenbosch University. So what do I do if Web of Science does not give me that particular option? Well, I don't panic. I will notice that on Web of Science there's an option that says add another field. And I will select add another field and not the wrong mouse again. And there you will notice that I have another search screen or search box with my topic option. And if I move over to the topic option and I move right down to the bottom, I can add this particular author's affiliation with the option address. Okay, so it's called something slightly different on Web of Science. Instead of affiliation, I now have the option address. And now I can add Stellenbosch University. Or maybe just even Stellenbosch. And I would select the search option. Right, and there I have a whole list of this particular author's journal articles. Unfortunately, from this page, I have no idea how many times this author has been cited or what this author or researcher's H-index is. Now, to get to the H-index and the citation overview, again, Web of Science also makes it very easy, similar to Scopus. On the right-hand side, there's an option that says Create Citation Report, and that's the option that we are going to use. And to the right-hand side of my result list or my citation overview, you will notice again there at the top, results found, that's the amount of articles that this particular author has published, how many times he has been cited, and the H-index is also indicated right at the bottom. You will notice right from the start here that this author has been cited a lot less in Web of Science than he was in Scopus without removing the self-citations. Because remember, the Scopus database covers a lot more journals than Web of Science does. So that's why he starts off with a lot less citations. Please just bear that in mind as well. And it seems to be that Web of Science actually indexes journal articles for their citation report from 1950 already, up until 2015. Again, very similar to Scopus, you can also select the an option there where you can exclude the self-citation articles by the author. Web of Science has already done that for you. You don't even have to do that. You will notice there at the top on the right-hand side, the very top citation amounts is the times that he's been cited, including self-citations, and just below that is the times that he has been cited, excluding his self-citations. And you will notice the H index for this particular author is similar to the one that we found on Web of Science. On Scopus, I beg your pardon. Also very interesting on Web of Science, the articles that is indicated on this particular citation report can be indexed in various ways. And the current index is by time cited. So you can actually change the articles that you are viewing by moving right to the bottom of the page, and for whatever reason you might change this time cited from lowest to highest. Or maybe you would like to see the particular sources from which this particular in which this particular author published, and to see which of those sources were cited the most. So I would select the view by title, and there right at the top I have the African Journal of Biotechnology. Which has unfortunately only received a total of 5 citations up until 2015. And you can see 2 of them were in 2014, 1 in 2013, and if you want to see an older one, then you can move to the top there where it says 2011, and if you click on the left pointing arrow, you would view older years, hopefully. Yes, from 2010 onwards, and my African Journal of Biotechnology, there are the 2 additional citations from 2008 and 2010. Right, let's move back to our PowerPoint presentation, see what we have next, so you can just follow me on screen. We are going to move over to Google Scholar, apparently. Again, Google Scholar is also a very good source to use, and if you are a very good researcher, you would know also that between Google Scholar and Scopus and Web of Science, you should cover the majority of academic information covered for your research. The problem obviously with Google Scholar is that it's very difficult to figure out exactly what they do index in that particular database, and because we don't know, they don't know either. So it's always a bit of a problem to figure out exactly why the H index on Google Scholar is so much higher than it is on Web of Science and Scopus. And because it's so much higher, obviously the researchers at all institutions always prefer to use the Google Scholar H index because it's so high. But we can just imagine that they are using slightly grey material that isn't obviously always peer-reviewed. And in Scopus as well as Web of Science, all journals indexed on those two databases are peer-reviewed, or so they say. On Google Scholar, we're not sure about that. And also Google Scholar does index some conference proceedings, but also aren't necessarily peer-reviewed. So that's just something to be aware of if you do a search on Google Scholar and your H-index or the author or researcher's H-index is higher than that. It is something obviously that the National Research Foundation are aware of. So that's why they also like to look at the Web of Science as well as the Scopus H-index, just to draw a comparison. In any case, on Google Scholar citations, if you log into Google Scholar, you can have a look at your own citations, and from your own citations page, you can also have a look at other researchers' citations at Stellenbosch University or whomever you are interested in. In this particular example, we have Professor Johan Maton from CREST, the Director of Center for Research on Evaluation, Science and Technology. So again, here you can see that his particular citations are indexed by the amount of cited articles. So he was cited quite a lot for that particular reference there at the top, which also looks like a book. And you will notice that his H-index is also indicated there on the right-hand side. Right, some of the problems or limitations that we have on Google Scholar I already mentioned. You can read through the rest of them there. The big bonus, of course, on Google Scholar is you do not need a subscription to a database to view your citations or your H-index. And that might be a big advantage because obviously if you're using Scopus or Web of Science, you need your institution to have a subscription to either of those databases. Otherwise, you won't have access to your citations and your H-index. And there are a number of other databases where you can also see what your H-index is and get not your H-index, your citation overview would be. The PowerPoint presentation would be available after the presentation or after the week, so you're more than welcome to go through those on your own. And before we move over to the journal impact factor, we can move back to our PCs and log into Google Scholar. And to access Google Scholar, we would, again, the library website, which we all know very well. Under search, we go to e-databases again. This time, because it's Google Scholar, I would select the G option. And there we have Google Books as well as Google Scholar. I would select Google Scholar. And here I would be able to either do a search, which we're not going to do at the moment. I just want to view a researcher's citation overview on Google Scholar. So how would I do that? Now, the only way that I know of doing that is to go to My Citations. And you can see there that I have to sign in to Google Scholar to access a citation overview. And the signing into Google Scholar we are doing on Thursday. During Thursday's presentation. So if you do not have an account for Google Scholar, you're more than welcome to join us on Thursday morning. Yes, morning. Then we will show you how to create a Google Scholar account. In any case, meanwhile, back at the ranch, you will notice there that I am neither Paulette nor am I Debbie. So I will have to sign in using my own account. So this is very important, and it's important for anything else that you want to do on Google Scholar. The tabs there at the top for metrics, alerts, and your own library, you'll have to sign in if you need to use any of those options. It's only the settings page that you don't need to sign in. And whilst I'm here on the settings page, maybe just as an added bonus, when you do get back to your own PC, laptop, tablet, or wherever that might be, at your own office, res, or home, go to the settings page And then just please make sure on the left-hand side there's an option that says library links. Okay, library links on the left-hand side. And please just make sure that both Stellenbosch University as well as Open World Catalog is selected. If neither of them are selected, just add the word South Africa into the search box and then make sure that those two are selected so that you know which of the sources on Google Scholar you have access to when you do a search. Right, but that's not what I want to do right now. I want to sign in. I reckon I have to add an account. So for those of you that do not have an account, you can just follow me on screen. For the rest of you, you are more than welcome to sign in. Right, it seems to have worked because I'm in. Just have to go back to my page. Click on save. Right, now I can move over to my citations if I want to view an author's or a researcher's citations. So if I click on my citations, I will get my own. But because it's pretty boring, I would like to see what other authors at Stellenbosch University also has citation overviews on Google Scholar. Now the only way to do that is to do a search on Google Scholar there on the right hand side. So if I use Stellenbosch as a search option, I will then click on the magnifying glass next to the search box and I would get a list of all the authors that has a profile on Google Scholar, and it starts with the author that was cited the most. So you will notice that this particular author has been cited. Remember, it's Google Scholar. So you can see there a total of 28,000 times that this author has been cited via Google Scholar. And you can also see here on Google Scholar the main topics of interest to that particular researcher or author here at Stellenbosch University. Right, so I'm going to use Professor Maton, who we used as an example in our PowerPoint presentation. There he is. So he's very high up the list. Again, his topics of interest are indicated just below his credentials. And as soon as I select the author or researcher, I will get a citation overview. And the H index will be indicated on the right-hand side as it is on Web of Science. And you can also get a graphical idea of how many times he has been cited over the years. And again, the index is compiled by the time cited. So his journal article, book chapter, conference proceeding, or whatever it is on Google Scholar with the most cites or citations will be displayed right at the top. Right. Another thing that you will notice that Professor Maton's H index is considerably lower than Professor Van Helden. You can see there H index of 19 compared to 50. So that's one of the big disadvantages of using an H index, is you cannot compare the H index of researchers from different, not even faculties, but not even different departments. So because Professor Maton is from a social sciences background, you can't compare his H index to Professor Van Helden, who comes from a medicine background and a scientific background. So please just be aware that an H index of 19, if you're from the Department of Social Research, that actually might be very high. And a H index of 50 from medicine might be very low. So just please be aware that the H indexes cannot be compared through different departments or different faculties. Right, let's move back to our PowerPoint presentation. And we move over to the journal impact factor. The journal impact factor is only available on the Web of Science. and it is one of the indexes that Stellenbosch University uses to see how many times an author has published in a very authoritative journal, because the National Research Foundation will also have a list, would like a list of the journals in which an author has published in, and that's one of the recommendations, that researchers preferably publish in high impact journals. As you can read there, it's the most well-known metric, also the most notorious, because it is a journal metric. It is not a researcher or an author metric, so it does not evaluate the quality of the research of that researcher. It tries to measure the quality of the journal. Not even the journal content, but the journal itself. So that is why it's called a notorious index, but it's still the one that's used the most throughout South Africa at all the universities, because it's important for your ranking at the National Research Foundation. The formula is fairly simplistic. As you can see there, they take the number of times that an article has been cited in a particular journal over a 2-year period, and they divide that by the amount of articles published in that particular journal over that 2-year period. And again, as a warning, the journal impact factor is exactly the same as the H index. You cannot compare the impact factor for one journal to that of another journal in different departments and in different faculties. So the impact factor might be very high for mathematics or physics and very low for education or law, but that doesn't mean that the quality of the articles and the quality of the research that are published in those journals are less. Right, journal citation reports. Again, there are 2 ways of accessing journal citation reports via the library websites. We're only going to show you one this afternoon already. And I guess we can move swiftly along to that. Right, so let's all move over to the correct mouse and select the library websites again. And we are going to use the old routine. Hopefully this gets very boring to you by now, by selecting the library website. Next to the White House, underneath search, we have an option that says electronic databases. Right. I'm going to move back to Web of Science. So I'm going to use the W option. And I will select Web of Science in my alphabetical listing, the second entry. Right, we have 2 options. We're only going to show you the one this afternoon. You will notice that I have the option that says Journal Citation Reports as a tab there at the top. So that is the link that I'm going to use to have a look at my department's journals and their impact factor. So that's going to take me through to the Journal Citation Reports. And you can see it's visually very challenging and very interesting. On the right-hand side now, you will have a complete overview of all the journals that are indexed on the Web of Science with their impact factors. But if we would like to see the impact factor of our specific department, we're not interested in the overview of the Web of Science journals. We would like to see which journals I should publish in my department and my faculty. What would I do? Now you will notice on the left-hand side that I have a few options. Compare journals, view title changes, select journals, as well as select categories. Now for this afternoon's presentation, I'm going to select a particular category, because underneath categories, I will get a list of all the subjects that are indexed by the Web of Science. And there you can see that I have anything from acoustics right through to zoology. So again, Web of Science is a very good database to use. Doesn't matter in which department and which faculty you are situated in. Please be aware though, if for instance you work for the Faculty of Law, like I do, and I would select a category, I have to make very sure that I have the correct index in front of me that has access to the law journals. Because right at the start, on the opening page, the home page of the journal citation reports, there's an option that says select edition. Now this is very important, because if you are from the social sciences faculties or the arts and humanities faculties, you must make sure that either both have been selected, or you will have to select the social science one on the right hand side, the social science index. Because if I am from the law faculty and the science citations index is selected only, and if I select my categories now, you will notice that if I browse down my menu, to my shock, there is no law option. And you will also notice that there is no education, there is no accountancy or accounting. So please just be aware that you have to select the edition, the correct edition. Either select both, which I'm going to do now, or depending on your faculty or department, select the social science index or the science index. For this morning's session, I'm going to select both. So let's go to select categories. And for this morning's session, I'm going to select my own. So I'm going to go with law, but you again are more than welcome to select your own. And after you've selected your subject area of choice, and you are looking for the submit option, or the go option, or the next option, it'll take you quite a while to figure out that there is no such a thing. For some reason, Web of Science have selected that you have to close your pop-up page. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Right. So after you've made your selection, and you can select more than 2 subjects, I close the page, and still nothing's happening. Please be aware that nothing's happened, even though I've selected my category of choice. Unfortunately, you will have to move down to the bottom of the page, and now you will notice that we have a submit option. So if I select my submit option now, at least now I can see that something has changed, and from all the different journals that's indexed on Web of Science, I now only have my law subject area. And you will notice there that the impact factor is quite low because it's law. But that does not mean that the Harvard Law Review, the stature of the Harvard Law Review is not as high as Cell magazine or Science or Nature. So please remember the journal impact factor, exactly the same as the H index. You cannot compare 2 different journal impact factors from 2 different subject areas. It's very useful though if you want to compare journals within your own subject area, because obviously your department would like you to publish your journal articles in the most, or the journals with the highest impact factor, because journals with the higher impact factor are cited the most and they are read the most. So obviously your research would also become more well known to the community out there. And you will also notice the total sites for that particular journal. Remember now we're talking of something different to the H index. So it's not researcher confined anymore. This is for that particular journal, not for a particular author. Right at the top, we have options where we can download the information into a spreadsheet. So if you need to download your particular department's journal impacts, at the top there's an option where you can select, it's the drop-down arrow, download, yes, there we go. If you select download, you can either download it in a PDF or two spreadsheet options. So for this morning's session, just as an example, I'm going to select the PDF option, and you will notice straight from the top that if you do select the PDF option, you get the nice visually displayed balls presentation of the law faculty's journals. So that's not really going to help my faculty decide in which journals I should publish in. So please don't use the PDF option because that only gives you the visual presentation. Either go with the two spreadsheet presentations, either the CSV one or the XLS, I guess. So if I use the second one, it asks me if I would like to save it or open it up. I'm not going to save it for this morning's presentation. I just like to open it up so that you can see what it looks like. And there we go. It's a nice Excel spreadsheet with the full journal title, the amount of cited articles in that particular journal, and there, very important, is your impact factor of that particular journal. And obviously this then you can save on for later use. Right, that's my part of the presentation. If there are any questions, you are more than welcome to ask at the end of Marie's presentation.
So I will continue again from the subject of webometrics. Just get to here as well. Okay, as technology develops, so does science practice and the way that it's measured. For example, a new field of study called webometrics has developed around analyzing features of the web that can be used to help determine the impact of an author or work. Webometrics is concerned with measuring aspects of the web, such as websites, web pages, hyperlinks, etc. So the two methods that's used is the link analysis, the study of hyperlinks between web pages, and web citation analysis. That's using the web to count how often journal articles are cited. The web impact factor number is the number of pages linking to a site divided by the number of pages in that site. A high value of the web impact factor indicates a site with high impact because there are relatively many pages linking to the site. The web impact factor was introduced by Ingwersen. And the web impact factor measure may be defined as the number of web pages in a website receiving links from other websites. Okay, so we looked at that. However, the use of the web impact factor has been disregarded due to the mathematical artifacts derived from power law distributions of these variables. Other similar indicator using size of the institution instead of the number of the web pages have been proved more useful. So it's a bit of a thing that has been developed but is not that useful anymore. So now I just want to have a quick overview as well for altmetrics. Another contemporary way of looking at research impact is by means of altmetrics. That's the type of metric is called altmetrics, and as well the name of a product that we will have a look at just now. Altmetrics does not only consider scholarly articles, but looks at a variety of research outputs. It can be data sets, software, posters, slides, videos, and websites. So the impact is measured by, for example, the number of tweets or the number of bookmarks you're using, the number of likes on your Facebook page, blog posts, media mentions, and so forth. So it can include a vast variety of methods. Altmetrics tracks how many times the outputs have been viewed, downloaded, cited, reused, adapted, shared, bookmarked, or commented upon. Keep in mind that social media is often used for promotion, which created the issue of to distinguish between impact and promotion. So with social media, you will more promote yourself, you will promote your articles, etc. But it's not necessarily going to measure that impact of your specific article. Okay, if you looked at, let me just continue here. The tools, a few examples of the rapidly growing number of new tools for measuring the impacts of these kind of research outputs include the following. Altmetric, that's a website, altmetric.com. That analyzes articles and data sets. Impact Story is another one that analyzes articles, data sets, blog posts, software, etc. Topsy is another one, which is an index of the public social web. SlideShare analyzes videos, presentations, slides, and documents that's posted to its website. I'm sure you all have seen SlideShare as well. Then there's also Plum Analytics and Site-In, which can be used to measure altmetrics. Okay, so if we go to look at altmetric.com, is one of the most popular ones to use. And we can go to that site just now. I'll show you how it looks. It's popular for librarians and researchers to look at. You can request a free trial account, and by completing a form, I'll show you how it looks. And you can also download the altmetric bookmarklet that you can use to look at altmetrics. Altmetric watches social media sites mostly, like Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Google+, science blogs, many mainstream media outlets, including the New York Times, The Guardian, non-English language publications like Die Zeit, it's a German publication, and Le Monde, the French one. So it also will import articles and mentions from there. And also special interest publications like Scientific American and New Scientists. And also reference managers like Mendeley, I think Zotero as well, etc. It cleans up this data and then it enriches it and allows authors, readers, and researchers to see it in a specific context. So perhaps we can just quickly, let me just see, yeah, we can quickly click here. And I just want to show you if we go to altmetric.com and this researcher page specifically, you can go there yourself and explore it further. But here it gives you all the information about the bookmarklet as well. And if you go right down, you will have this form that you can complete to request a free trial. And if you do that, you can start using it for a while to see how it works. But the bookmarklet is totally free to use in any case. So if you go to that, I'm just going back to the presentation. When you pick an article in a website, in a database that acknowledges altmetric.com, then you can click on it and click on the bookmarklet and it will show you that donut. So what I'm going to just show you next is how the donut looks when you will find it on the web. This is what it takes together. It's the 193 that it shows there is the amount of mentions on any of these products. So the first one is the tweets and blogged. It was 18. And for this specific example, there was one Facebook page and picked up by 4 news outlets and 1 questions and answers thread as well. And then there was over 1,000 readers on Mendeley and a few on Conatia and Cite You Like as well. So that's the type of information you will get for your article, which is very nice on the sites that it works. It's not on all databases that you will be able to use this. And that badge, this donut thingy, can also be embedded in your website or whatever you are using to promote yourself. The altmetric score, I just want to talk a bit more about that. We don't know the specific algorithm that they are using to get to that, but it looks at the quantity of the attention received, the number of mentions like you see here, and the quality of that attention. So a news story will count more than a Facebook page. That's just an example. The colors surrounding the donut reflect the mix of sources like you've seen. The blue is for Twitter and yellow for blogs and red for mainstream media sources and so on. Okay, so that's just a bit more information. But then altmetrics is also available in Scopus. So if you, it appears in a sidebar of Scopus and it will look like this. But you have it's only when there is data available for that article that you are viewing. So it's also not all articles won't have it. There must be this type of data available. Like in this case, this example we have here, it will appear on the right-hand side of your Scopus bar. And up to now, this article has been mentioned 36 times by 30 sources. So the sources they link here. It's Facebook users, science blogs, a Google Plus user, and a lot of tweeters as well. And then also saved to reference managers as Cite You Like and Mendeley. So that's just another example of how it can be used in Scopus. So you can also go and have a look if you find articles that has this altmetric donut included in the Scopus example. Okay, so the next one that we're looking into is just a quick look at impact stories, another site to use for altmetrics. You can create a profile, and then Impact Story collects your products from SlideShare, Orchid, and Figshare, and also GitHub. So it's also a place where you can get information about your products that you've been using. So in this case, this was Lucia Squimby's example that we have here, and she, there was one article listed, and then it will show who has, or how many interactions there were with that specific article. But you can go there yourself and explore a bit further there yourself. We're just going to conclude the session now with just a bit of strategies to improve your impact. Your research footprint is not only about measuring it, but you also have to enhance it. The library promotes the following services aimed at enhancing your research footprint. One of these are Researcher ID, ORCID, and also Sun Scholar. Our repository is important tools to increase your impact. There's a few workshops around Sun Scholar as well throughout the year, so you are welcome to attend that if you want to know more about how to use Sun Scholar and submit your articles also to Sun Scholar. I would also would like to bring to your attention this article by Al Ibrahim, in which he declares that visibility is the key to higher citations. His article reviews literature about ways to increase your citations, and he comes up with 33 ways to do so. Some of the suggestions are a bit whimsical, and others could be noteworthy. So we'll just have a look at a few. So the first one, international education studies, effective strategies for increasing citation frequency. Goed, doordrag. So the first one is to use a unique name consistently, or a unique author ID. It could be Researcher ID or ORCID. There's a few others available as well, and we'll have that section on unique author IDs on Thursday if you want to know more about that. It's also important to use a standardized institutional affiliation and address using no abbreviations. So, for example, in Stellenbosch, use Stellenbosch University and not University of Stellenbosch, or a lot of different ways. It's just use the standard method, and then it's just more easy to pick up your affiliation. Assign keyword terms to your manuscript. It's also important to publish in a journal with a high impact factor, as Peter has also indicated previously. It's also very important to self-archive your articles. That's now with, in Stellenbosch, we use our Sun Scholar repository, and it's open access, accessible everywhere in the world. And if your articles and dissertations and things are available there, it's open to the whole world to see and to find. Then open access, again, increases your citation rate definitely. Team-authored articles get cited more as well. It's an interesting one, but it seems the literature says that team-authored articles really get cited more. Write review articles. Contribute to Wikipedia. It increases your visibility. Join academic social networking sites. Share detailed research data. Just to come back to the academic social networking sites, we'll have tomorrow afternoon a session about building your online identity, and I think that one will pick up on that very strongly. Publish your work in a journal with the highest number of abstracting and indexing, and create an online CV, very important for visibility. It could also be useful to make a podcast about your research and your articles. Then we just want to highlight also a few limitations of citation analysis to end off with. Papers are cited for a variety of reasons, some of which are not related to the value of the research. Citation analysis relies heavily on journal content. However, many subject areas prefer to publish books and are therefore not well represented in citation indexes. So just be aware of those as well. Good, and then metrics, just to end off. There are also with issues related to the use of metrics for evaluating research performance. The indicators should be a means to an end and not an end in itself. Triangulate. Use metrics in combinations with peer review and expert opinion, and use indicators in a combination and not only on its own. Never rely on only one indicator, because then it could be a bit of a skewed look. Avoid perversion of the science process. Research performance is a complex, multifaceted endeavor that cannot be assessed adequately by means of a single indicator. Guard against publication obesity as well, where numbers become the main objective of publication instead of the science progress. Then just one final comment. Most of all, keep in mind, the prime issue of publication is to communicate, share research knowledge. It is not supposed to be a mere symbol of research ranking. So this was a quote by Steele in 2006. So yes, this is the presentation. So Peter is here as well if you have questions at this stage. And Marie there at the back, Marie Traun also is a colleague of us with a lot of expertise on this topic. If you have any questions, the three of us should be able to help you. Nothing at this stage. Does it look like it? Okay. But thank you very much for coming. We're a bit earlier finished. Yes.
I was wondering,
Unpublished work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How is an impact of research measured without those unpublished work? Because they are never put in the net, so they are not indicated as work that have been cited. So how does that contribute to identifying the impact of research?
Yeah, I think using some scholar as well, perhaps, Mimi, I'm not sure if you heard this question. Unpublished work that's not been published anywhere, it cannot be imported in some scholar as well, no, because it has to be.
Peer reviewed.
Yes.
Could be maybe in some cases where it be peer reviewed but not published yet, but after publication that would be accepted.
Yeah, that's the problem with open access as well. When you want to upload it to our repository, it also has to be peer reviewed and published in a journal. So that's why you must make sure to try to publish your work. I'm not sure if someone else has an answer to that question, but yeah.
Unpublished work doesn't count for you. So whether it gets cited or not, it can only be cited if it's published.
Yeah.
So it can't count pretty much for anything. The only thing that I see under unpublished might be the doctoral or the master's degree thesis.
Yeah, and that will be uploaded to
But that's uploaded, but that's not truly unpublished. It's
can stop. Oh, gaan ik kom stop nou.